Hi guys, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make this V-stitch ripple stitch. And as you can see with this stitch, it has very high peaks and very low peaks. I really think this looks very unique. To do the stitch, it looks better if you change colors every 2 rows. You can use any size yarn. I'm using worsted weight yarn, which is 4-ply for the US, 10-ply for Australia, and use any size that the yarn will recommend a hook size when you look on the paper. And for worsted weight yarn, it's usually around the 5mm size H hook for the US. So that's what I'm going to use. The multiples of this stitch is 20 plus 3. And what that means is that you're going to chain in sets of 20. This is 2 sets of 20. The chain, and then once you have your sets of 20 and you have the width that you want, then chain 3 more and you're ready to start. Now the width that I have here, the crocheted piece, I chained 60. So this is only a chain of 40. So you can already tell, because of the highs and lows that this stitch has, that it's definitely, you're going to lose some, you're going to have some shrinkage whenever you start to work the stitch. So I believe that each one starts with the top and goes up. So this is 40, and then if I added the other 10, which is what this is 60, this is a chain of 40, it would fit over the whole thing. So just keep in mind, you're going to lose, I'd say about, you're going to lose about an inch every 20 stitches. So for instance, I have 40, so I've done 20 twice, and I've lost, I'd say from this peak to the end, I've lost about 2 inches. So because it's such a ripple, just keep in mind you're going to lose about an inch per 20 chains. Okay, so I have the width that I want, so I'm ready to do my plus 3 now. Now I'm ready to start row 1. For row 1, you want to double crochet in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th chain from the hook. So count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this 5th chain from the hook. You want to work your first V-stitch, and V-stitches are made up of double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, all in the same stitch. So that's our very first V-stitch. Then you'll chain 1. You'll skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and in this 4th chain over, again you'll work your next V-stitch, which is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And then you'll want to chain 1 again, move over 3, skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in this 4th chain here, you want to work a V-stitch. Then you'll chain 3, because right here we're going to be making the peak. So chain 3, and in the same chain that you just worked your last V-stitch in, you want to work the next V-stitch as well. So you'll have 2 V-stitches and a chain 3 all worked in the same stitch, and that will give you your peak. Then you'll chain 1 again. You'll move over, you'll skip 3, 1, 2, 3, so in this 4th chain over, you're going to do another V-stitch. And then you'll chain 1 again. And then we're going to be starting our down peak. So skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and in this 4th one over, you'll do a V-stitch. And then without chaining 1, you're going to skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and in this 4th chain, you'll do another V-stitch. And that's going to be the start of your down peak. But it only starts to become a down peak as you do more rows, and it'll pull it more together. So once we've got our down peak, you'll chain 1, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th chain over, do a V-stitch. and then you'll chain 1, skip 3, and then the 4th chain over, do a V-stitch. This is going to be our peak again, so you'll do V-stitch, chain 3, and then work another V-stitch in that same stitch. Okay, and then you'll chain 1, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, 4th one over, you'll put a V-stitch. You'll chain 1, you'll skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then that should give you 3 chains left. So skip 3, and then the 4th chain over, do a V-stitch. This would usually be our low point, our low peak. So without chaining 1, you just want to skip 1 chain and double crochet in the last chain. See, as I said, the low won't really become sharper until you do more rows, but that's what the beginning, that's what row 1 looks like. You want to chain 3 and turn. For row 2, we're going to be working in the chain 1 spaces from row 1. So find your first chain 1 space between the 2 V-stitches, and you'll put a V-stitch there. Then chain 1, and you're going to move over and do the same thing in the next chain 1 space. You'll put a V-stitch there. Chain 1, and this is where you work on the chain 3 space itself. Here you're going to work another peak. So using the chain 3, you're going to do your V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch, all worked in this chain 3 space. You'll always work your peaks like this in the chain 3 space. So V-stitch, chain 3, don't lose your loop like I just did, and V-stitch again. That creates the next peak for this row. You'll chain 1, and then again you're going to be working in the chain 1 space, creating a V-stitch. Chain 1. I don't know why I keep losing my yarn here. Okay, so then it brings us to the peak. So whoops, not chain 1. I'm so used to chaining 1. Wait, no, okay. Yeah, you do chain 1 after that one. We still have 1 more V-stitch to do before the down part in this last chain 1 space. But don't chain 1 after that one. You want to move over to the other side. So you'll be skipping your low peak here, the 2 V-stitches that have no chain in the middle, and you're just going to come on over to the first chain 1 space after. And that's how you start to pull your low peak down. Then you'll chain 1, find your next chain 1 space before the peak here. Chain 1, then you'll do your peak. So in your chain 3 space, the top of your peak, you're gonna put your V-stitch. Why do I keep losing my yarn? V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch. Then after that, after you've done your peak, you're gonna chain 1, move into the next chain 1 space here, and do a V-stitch. Then chain 1. In your very last chain 1 space here, you're going to put a V-stitch, but don't chain 1 after. You're just going to come right in here in this chain space here, and you're going to put a double crochet in the ending chain 3 space. And that will end row 2. And if you haven't noticed, if you look, there's only one, like what I call free floating V-stitch. So you're only going to have, like, this one is already on the bottom peak, and then this is the floating one, and then here this first V-stitch here is already as part of the peak. So these are both bottom ones, and these are top ones. So see, you only really have one V-stitch in between, one regular V-stitch chain 1. Then you're going to already start your low peak or your upper peak. So just keep that in mind. You only really have one floating V-stitch. The rest are going to be a part of the upper or lower peak. So that's 2 rows of the same color. This is where I usually change. Also, this is where we're going to start. The way the stitch will be done from here on out is how you'll do row 3, which is what I'm about to show you. And then you're just going to like repeat row 3 over and over again, but you'll just be changing colors every 2 rows for the best result. So I'm going to switch colors real quick. Usually what I do is I take out the loop so I don't complete the very last stitch. Then I'll get my next color. I'll just take my next color and create my own loop, which I will feed through my loops to complete my stitch. Then you want to pull the original color just to tighten the loops a little bit, and then pick up your new color. Okay, for row 3, and this will be the repeat, you will chain 3, turn. Now we're going to be working with V-stitches. Last time we were going through the chain 1s between the 2 V-stitches. From now on, you're going to be working in the V-stitch. So this first V-stitch that you have here on the previous row will always be skipped. You never put anything in this first one. You know, when we end the row by doing a V-stitch and then don't chain 1 and you just double crochet there at the end, it's basically on the down. It's on the down peak. So you don't touch this. You're only going to be working in what I call the floater, the one I was telling you about before, the one that's between the high and the low point. This will always be your first stitch of the row. If you mess up, you're going to get off. It won't look right on the ends. So to make sure that your sides stay straight, always put it in the middle one. So I'm going to do that now. I already chained 3. And since I need to work 1 row down, this is my floater. This is my middle one. See, this is my peak, that's my low. So you're always going to be working 1 row down. So next row, after you come back, this will be the middle one. But since we'll always be working 1 row down, so I'll be working on row 1 in this middle one, middle V-stitch. So I'm going to come down into that V-stitch and then just do a V-stitch. You're basically working in the first row over the second row. And this is how it's going to create color, blending down. So once you got your V-stitch, chain 1. Then you're coming over here to the next V-stitch, which essentially you're creating your middle one, your middle V-stitch, your floater as I was calling them. That's the middle one. So that means we're going to start our peak. We've come to the chain 3 here. So you'll do a V-stitch, chain 3, V-stitch. Then you'll chain 1, find that middle one, which is here, which is actually part of your peak on row 1. You'll be coming into that V-stitch and doing a V-stitch in that one. And then you've got 1 more here, 1 row down, whoops. Go down 1 row into that V-stitch. And then without chaining 1, you want to move over here. Take a look here. This is your 2 middle ones that are your low. Has no chain in the middle. So you'll be working a V-stitch before it, and just like we did before, we'll be working it after. So we've gone into this V-stitch, skip the 2 center ones, and then work into the next V-stitch on row 1. Again, you don't chain 1 in between these 2. Okay, now you chain 1, find your next V-stitch here, which is your middle V-stitch, not part of the peak or the bottom, either peak. Then you'll chain 1 and then you'll work your upper peak. So V-stitch, chain 3, then V-stitch. Okay. Then you'll chain 1 again. And then again, you'll go down 1 row here, do your middle V-stitch, which will bring us to the end where we do our low point, like our half a low point. So you will chain 1 after that one. Then you'll come down, and in the very next V-stitch, work your V-stitch, but don't chain 1 after. Just yarn over, and again in this chain 3 space here at the end, put a double crochet. That will end row 3. And you're going to be working this exact stitch 2 rows down, or I should say 1 row down. Every row it'll be a repeat of chain 3. So this is row 4, which is a repeat of chain 3. I mean row 3. I keep saying chain. Okay, so this time chain 3. Actually needed to say chain that time. Okay. So chain 3, skip the very first, remember, skip the very first V-stitch, find your next V-stitch, 1 row down, and do your first V-stitch in that. Chain 1, find your next V-stitch, which will be part of the peak. Do your V-stitch there, chain 1. Now you're going to be working your peak. So do a V-stitch, chain 3, and then do a V-stitch. I want to show you something after I show you this row. Okay, so again, this is 2 rows down. This is your very next stitch, which is your middle one, because you just did your peak. So that's going to be your floater, so you know the next one will be part of your down peak. So the first part of it is before the first V-stitch. Remember, don't chain 1 after. And then you skip on over and do the V-stitch after. See, now you can start to see 2 V-stitches, 2 V-stitches, 2 V-stitches, starting to pull together. So after you do that V-stitch, you'll chain 1. Then you'll do your middle V-stitch again, which your middle one will always be part of the previous peak. Chain 1, and then do your upper peak. 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget chain 1 after that. Then we'll be doing our center V-stitch. So do a V-stitch and chain 1. And that will bring us to the end again. So just like before, you'll always skip the very last V-stitch. You'll always skip the very first V-stitch. So this one here will be our last one. So do your V-stitch, and without chaining 1, do a double crochet in the final chain 3 space. And that's the end of row 4, which is the repeat of row 3. And you just want to keep repeating row 3. Like now, I just did 2 rows of color. I would want to change to a 3rd color. I think I used 4 different colors on mine originally, which I'm going to show you now. And what I wanted to show, or tell you about anyway, is, as you can see, get that out of the way. There's no, because you're doing every 2 rows of changing color, all the fringe, if you want to call it that, all the tails, all end up on one side. So you can hide those, or at the end of all the blankets you can add fringe on the other side as well. Or just create a border around the whole thing, though doing that on this particular kind of stitch could be difficult. But I just wanted you to know that it's only a one-sided thing. So that's it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to like and share and comment under this video. It helps me out so much. Also, if you want to be notified whenever I release a new tutorial, you can go to my main channel on YouTube, and right next to the subscribe button there's a little bell button. You can click it, and then you'll always get notifications when I release a new video. Also, if you wanted to know what kind of hook I'm using in this video, you can find that link down below. It's a wooden furls hook. I recommend if you're going to order one that you order one with the extended hook. If not, it's only going to come with half the size. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Crochet for the Masses. We share links to free patterns, pictures of stuff we just got done with, funny things that we find on the internet. You can ask questions there. It's a great source for if you love crochet. So I hope I see you there. So that's it, guys. Thank you so very much for watching.